Calico Chocolate Academy in Chicago, and I'm here today to make a dessert featuring yeasted waffle with rum pearl sugar, braised pineapple, whipped coconut, and a buttered cashew powder, utilizing the Waring Liquilog food processor and the double-sided waffle iron. So for the first component, we'll be making a caramel cashew powder. We'll start simply by adding all the cashews to the food processor. And you can see all the grease that's residual from the frying process. And it's very important to fry the cashews. If you simply roast them in the oven, they'll end up drying out and you won't get a smooth puree. This process here, it takes about 3 to 5 minutes for the nuts to fully break down and the fat to render out and it to liquefy. So while the cashews are liquefying, we're going to start cooking our sugar, water, and honey in this pot, and we'll bring it to the temperature of 140 degrees Celsius. So as soon as the sugar reaches 2 degrees less than you want it, so 138 degrees for us, which is now, what we're going to do is flood the liquid cashews with sugar crystals, and that's going to encourage this liquid sugar here to recrystallize as it's added. So now we're adding the sugar very slowly, just drizzling it in. Hear it get quiet, it'll start to tighten up. It'll turn into a big ball. We're going to turn it off for 10 seconds, which will give the chance for the sugar to start locking up. And after 10 seconds, just a little rough estimate, you can start processing it again, pulsing it, and it'll start shattering into a powder. Occasionally you'll end up with fairly large clumps. It's no problem, just break them up, give it another whir. Just continue pulsing it. Now with the Liquilog, you don't even need to take the center part out, which is something that is kind of a hassle with every other food processor. So now that all the powder's out, while it's still a little bit warm, go ahead and break it up. But as you can see, you have a really nice, light, loose powder here. Now we'll move on to the second component in our brown butter cashew powder, which is the brown butter powder. We'll be taking tapioca maltodextrin, which is a modified tapioca starch that's capable of stabilizing fat rather than liquid. And we'll just turn this on. And this here is brown butter that's kept warm just to the point where it retains its liquidity. We'll just slowly drizzle it in. Once all the butter is incorporated, as you can see, the tapioca maltodextrin has turned the liquid brown butter into a powder as well. So the traditional yeasted liege waffle contains a sugar that's common in Scandinavia and Belgium called pearl sugar. It's not something you see often here, so I decided to replicate that by creating a sugar solution made with rum and raw sugar. So the rum I've chosen for this is a Demerara rum, which is very heavy in brown sugar notes, very yeasty. And in the pot we'll put 100 grams, mixed with 100 grams of sugar. And we'll let that simmer, and you want to cook it to roughly 120 degrees Celsius. So the sugar solution has reached 120 degrees. You can see the bubbles start to bubble thick, meaning most of the water has been evaporated. Just going to dump in our large grain sugar and start to agitate it. Until I can see the sugar start to whiten, which means it's recrystallizing. I'm just going to spread it out on a sheet pan, break it up. Once it cools completely, you'll have tiny rocks of rum-flavored sugar. Now that our dough is rested in the refrigerator for half an hour, it's time to fold in our pearl sugar. So it's still a little sticky, so I like to utilize the plastic wrap to help me fold the sugar in. You're going to sprinkle the pearl sugar over the surface and then fold it in much like you would fold butter into a puff pastry dough. So I'm just going to pick up the side, fold it over like a book. Pick this side up, fold it over the same. I'm just folding it 3 or 4 times until I see the pearl sugar begin to disperse evenly. So now that I can see that the pearl sugar is evenly dispersed in the dough, I'm going to portion it into individual waffle portions for its final proofing. And you just want to lightly round it. Each piece should weigh around 110 to 115 grams based on this batch size. So now that our dough has been portioned and rounded, we're going to cover it with plastic and let it rise for roughly an hour. Now that the waffles have risen, it's time to bake them in the Waring waffle maker. I'm just going to spray with a little bit of pan spray to help in the release. Beautiful thing about this double waffle maker, just flip it over and you're ready to make your second waffle in about half the space on the counter. For these yeasted waffles, about 3 to 4 minutes is appropriate. There we go. So the timer's sound. We can take our first peek. Here we go. Here's the first waffle we put in. You can smell the fresh yeast and all the sugar caramelizing on the surface. Yum. And as you can see here, at 375, 4 minutes, we have perfect caramelization of the beads of sugar that were exposed to the surface area. So for the whipped coconut component, we're going to utilize the whipping disc that Waring has just developed. And with this whipping disc, what we're going to do is essentially replicate whipped cream. Instead of just whipping cream, what we've done is I've taken young coconut and separated the water from the flesh, pureed the flesh, and combined it with cream. And we're going to make a very coconutty whipped cream. There we go. There goes all the liquid. Now cream hardly takes any time at all, so you'll want to keep a very close eye on it. So I can see it thickening already. Stop it and take a look. You can always go 1 or 2 pulses further. You can never take it back. See, it's very soft. It's what we would consider creme chantilly. I'm going to take it just a little further. There we go. Give it another check. There we go. Whipped coconut. So now we're ready to plate. We've got our waffle, which we've cut into little cubes. Take our brown butter cashew powder, sprinkle it on. And now we have pineapple that we've braised in the same rum we made the pearl sugar out of. And just a little bit of the syrup left over from the braising. So here's our final dish for you, utilizing the Waring food processor and waffle maker. We've created a yeasted waffle with rum pearl sugar, whipped coconut, a powder made out of cashews and butter, and braised pineapple.